It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Why, hello there, everybody, and welcome to a live, really live,
we can touch each other.
Super
We're here.
live episode of Talk Heathen. We are back in the studio, baby. Now, this is not just a one-off. We plan to do at least one live show in the studio at the last Sunday of every single month. It may be with two hosts in, it may be one host here, one remoting. We're going to figure that out. But for now, this is our first live in-person episode in like 2 years.
2 years. 2 years since we last sat in these chairs.
Since the pandemic. And of course, since that time, we have gained a lot of new crew that's been helping us out, a lot of new hosts that don't live in the Austin area. So we're still going to be having shows that are done remotely to accommodate those folks. But again, once a month, we're going to at least try to do it here in the studio. So I am super excited to be back, Jim. How about you?
I have been excited for this ever since they told us we were doing it.
Yeah. It's been awesome. And as you can see, folks, at the beginning of the show, you saw that is not a pre-taped footage. That is a live audience that is right here sitting in front of us, staring at us, just like the old times, Jim. It's really great.
Except that before we didn't have a camera to pan across.
That's right.
And we didn't have a way for members of the audience to actually ask questions while they were here.
That's right.
Live on air. They can always ask questions because we're here before and after the show. And if you just want to have, chat about anything, then you can do that because the show's got to focus.
That's right. Right. So as Jim is talking about here, we are doing something also new today. Usually we just take calls. We're going to be taking some calls today. So please keep calling us if you want to talk to us. But we are also going to be taking audience questions from the audience here in the studio as well. So we're going to try to go back and forth with that. We'll see how it works. But hey, everybody, welcome to Talk Heathen. If this is your first time watching, this is a show that is hosted by the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 non-profit. Jim, I'm used to doing this in my apartment now. There's like people watching me and stuff. It's different, man. Anyway, this is an organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and the separation of religion and government. So if that sounds cool to you, hey, come check us out. And this is a live call-in show, as we said before. So go ahead and call the number on screen, or you can click on that tiny.cc link that's there in the description of the show to watch us as well. So, man, I'm super excited.
I know. This is really good.
Is
incredibly awesome.
Real quick, I just want to point out, if you want to support this show and you like what we're doing, you can do that on tiny.cc/PatreonTH. And if you do that, you are really, really cool. And we love everybody that does that. We're going to give a shout out to a couple of the top patrons as well in the show. But please like and subscribe if you like this content, and comment below and talk about your favorite calls, which hosts you like, what conversations you like, all kinds of stuff. And be nice to our audience members, okay? I don't want to see any mean comments about our audience members.
Our audience members are awesome.
Right. And we're going to try that out right now. I think we should just jump right in.
Well, one quick thing. If you do come to the library and you want to sit out in the audience, but you don't want to be on the show, we're just doing the live show, the live shot at the beginning. So as soon as we start with the announcements, that will be done. And so you can come back in and watch the show live just like we used to. Yeah, definitely. And we have lots of people here in the building. And I imagine as this goes on, it's going to be even more packed, just like it was before. But hey, I got some more announcements, but we'll get to it in a sec. We got to talk to some audience members. Yeah, let's talk to an audience member.
I'm excited for this. So we are setting this up again for the very first time. We are going to switch our camera over to an audience member. They should be appearing on the screen at any moment. And hey, there they are, right there in the center. Hi, audience member. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. What is your name?
Amy.
Amy, and where are you from?
I'm here in Austin now.
Amy, here in Austin, Texas. Amy, what's your question today?
Okay, I'm trying to decide. It's like that Reddit, am I the asshole?
Okay.
I tried to name my son Heathen. My kids are not baptized. I have atheist memorabilia around the house, bumper stickers. But I find myself so afraid of my father-in-law, ex-father-in-law, who's a Methodist minister, that I don't always say I'm an atheist when I'm having these conversations. I'm sure they figured it out. I wanted to name my son Heathen. But am I an asshole? Should I be trying harder and, being out there more? Or is there room to be a little bit afraid because some people have guns and they're crazy?
Yes, we do. We do live out here in Saudi Arabia, where, guns are a thing.
Yeah.
I'm a little careful myself walking around. I'm living out with my girlfriend in East Texas. And so I'm a little less out than I normally am just because you never know what kind of whack job is out there.
Yeah.
There's always a concern for safety, and not just here, but in a lot of places. There are places that have it far worse than we do. And so you're not being an asshole. You're just playing it safe. And a lot depends on how much of a relationship you want with your ex-father-in-law. Right? I mean, if you don't want any relationship, then, who gives a shit what he thinks, right?
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. Obviously, I don't have kids, so I can't really comment on this situation in any official capacity whatsoever. I guess I will say, it's like, I don't know, by the time that kid grows up and they can call themselves whatever they want, so at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter. Obviously, there's some significance and importance to what you name your kid, right? But I don't know. I feel like it's 2022. People should be able to name their kids whatever they want. I think there's been more out there names than Heathen.
Yeah.
Sounds like Ethan too.
Yeah,
sounds like Ethan. Yeah. I've seen kids name their kid like Dovahkiin. Remember that? Skyrim did a thing where they had a contest and named their kid after the main character of that game. So it's like, why not? I don't see a big problem in it. Obviously there's going to be family members that feel differently, but it's not their kid. I don't know.
So you don't think I'm letting down the home team by not having it tattooed on my forehead?
It's not. No. It's not your job to get their opinion on it. To be honest with you, it's nice to be considerate of their feelings, but ultimately they're not the one raising the child, right? Unless correct me if I'm wrong. They're not a part of that household, so.
Yeah,
I just feel like sometimes all the good things I do, when people are like, "Oh, God bless you," it's like, no, I'm an atheist. I want to make sure you understand I'm doing these good things because I think it's the right thing to do.
The weird thing would be if his name was Heathen and he grew up to be a Christian, right? Like he did find the Lord. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I have a friend who raised an atheist, and she took her off to UT for college, and she called me in tears that first summer. She's like, "My daughter's home from college. You know what I found under her mattress?" I was like, "Porn? Do girls do that?" She's, "No, a Bible." I was like, "Ooh, didn't see that coming." All right.
No, maybe it was just there for extra support. Some people like their mattresses more firm. It's pretty.
Came to UT and found Jesus. Who knew?
Oh man,
exactly.
It's and then there's the kids. Some of them probably watching us who are named Christian, who are not Christians anymore. This. It's kind of a whole thing. But I say go for it. I don't know.
Yeah, and you're never an asshole for living your life and not being not out as, say, Dan and I are doing a TV show, right? Or doing a show.
Right.
It's not incumbent on anybody to tell everybody in the world that they are, in fact, an atheist. The only thing as atheists is incumbent is to live the best lives that we can, and that's just part of being this is part of the society, right? Is doing the best we can with what we have. I don't think it's incumbent on anybody to be out as an atheist if they are an atheist. I don't think it's incumbent on them to be out as a Christian.
Yep.
In fact, it might be better off if they weren't as out as they are.
Yep. It is the current social climate to be, kind of as considerate as possible to the Christian majority, but that's only because of the time we live in now.
And I'm not considerate to the Christian majority because I want to be considerate necessarily to them all the time, but simply because, they're armed out here.
Yeah.
But also, too, sometimes one of the things here is they'll say God bless instead of goodbye or thank you. And so it's not really a God bless. It's just a phrase they say at the end of conversation. Whether you're going to a store and buying something, checkout clerks at grocery stores will say it a lot. Have a blessed day.
Yeah,
and they don't mean anything by it, and that's not an insult to us as an atheist. They don't know who we are. It's just part of who they are, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, even, right? They're wishing you well, So take it aside and move on. I think if you do start saying, "Oh, I'm an atheist," then yes, you are being an asshole at that point, right? Yeah. To a grocery clerk who's just saying "Have a blessed day" as you move down to get your groceries out of the way, right?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't throw that back in their face.
Yeah.
But other than that, no one is required as an atheist to be out. No one is required as an atheist to know anything about philosophy. They're not required to know anything about the Bible. The only thing that's required is that you don't accept as true that there are one or more gods that exist.
Yep.
That's the bare minimum.
Yep. Amy, I think we answered your question sufficiently. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I feel a lot better.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. And that was, folks at home and here in the audience, our very first audience question we've ever done ever, and that went pretty good.
I'm finding that the lack of lag between the two of us makes us working together better.
It does.
Than it normally does.
It does kind of speed things up a little bit, right? Which I like. I do miss that part of it. Although for the majority of the shows I've been doing, I've been having remote hosts anyway. But hey, I am really excited again to be back here. Real quick, I do have some other announcements that I was supposed to do earlier, but I was too excited. I'm going to go do some of this now. Just to let you guys know, if you want to become a channel member, okay, you can click the join button on the video below, and you'll get custom chat emojis if you do that, and you'll also help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen and the atheist community of Austin in general. So please do that if you're interested. And those of you who already have, show off those emojis in the chat right now. We would appreciate you doing that. Another thing is when you see in the below live chat, we also have a fundraiser. Okay, so this is a thing that we get to do with YouTube. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the ACA. YouTube does not take any of that. They don't charge us fees for that. Okay, so that's just something nonprofits can do with YouTube, and we're a nonprofit. So we'd appreciate it if you want to make a donation. You can do that right there by hitting that fundraiser button, and it is pretty cool. I think I'm good with that. I think we should talk to some calls.
Yeah, let's take some calls.
Let's do that. Okay, so we got a couple people. A couple people wanted to talk to us here. Let's see. I want to talk to Elizabeth.
Okay.
I want to talk to Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Elizabeth, who's calling in from the UK. Elizabeth, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hi. Hello. I've spoken to the chap on the left before. I can't see the name. It was on the Atheist Experience. I called in because my son he died of COVID and he was gay, and they said he was going to hell. Well, anyway, I've gotten away from Christianity now, and I'm an atheist. But I want to say, I think you're really lucky. Well, I wouldn't say lucky, because I know being an atheist there is difficult, but at least you have free speech.
Yes.
Now, what's going on in this country, in the UK, is we don't have free speech, and I have developed ALS like Dave from Dying Out Loud.
Yep.
And I need specialist accommodation, and I found that because of speaking out against the state social workers, I've been classified as being antisocial behaviour. We have what's called in this country protected characteristics, which means you can't speak against anything of that nature, and religion is one of them. So, I mean, it's like really difficult here. I mean, I know it's not like in Saudi Arabia where you're gonna, or other countries where you're gonna maybe get shot or something, but at the moment I'm fighting in law here to get my housing because I've actually expressed I'm an atheist, and that's been interpreted as hate speech. And I think, in America, you really need to appreciate that there you can actually, at least to some extent, you have free speech. That's it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It is something that a lot of people here take for granted, but we do have an express separation between church and state in our Constitution. Whether or not people take advantage of that or not is, up for debate. But a lot of the countries don't have that, including the UK, and you see that intermingling in those institutions happening all the time. One thing that's happening right now, actually, in the United States is we are seeing a rise in Christian nationalism. And one of the tenets of Christian nationalism, at least one that's being purported by a lot of Christian nationalists, is this idea that actually the framers of the Constitution didn't intend for the separation of church and state at all. That they think that the United States is a uniquely Christian country and that was founded on Christian principles, and therefore, those intermingling is actually totally fine because it's actually, right at the beginning there. And the way things are going, I don't know if any decisions are going to be made to overturn that, but we're already kind of seeing that right now. I mean, there was a case in the one of the states in the eastern U.S. I can't remember if it was Maryland or somewhere where the state is actually funding one of the Christian schools that were there. We're seeing some of this stuff happen with our current Supreme Court, and it's not great.
Yeah, but we do have kind of that advantage that it's really hard to shut us up. And unfortunately, it sounds like they're tying your necessary medical care to what you believe, and that doesn't seem quite right. But I don't know what you can do about it. I'm not a lawyer in the United States, much less in England.
No, I don't care if you're a QAnon believer. I don't care if you're a Muslim. I don't care if you're a Christian. Whatever, you have a right to health care, in my opinion. I don't think your religious beliefs should bar you from that. Obviously, I don't know at all what's going on with your situation. I don't live in the UK. I don't exactly know how that works. But if what you're saying is true, and that it's because the fact that you're openly expressing yourself as an atheist and you're not receiving the care that you need, then that is absolutely terrible. That definitely should not happen.
Yes, especially for a country that's supposed to have nationalized health care.
Yeah.
Here, nobody gets health care, except the rich. There might be some resources there in England that we're unaware of. And so if you are in the live chat, they may be able to help you find some places, and there might be some other places online as well, such as our Facebook channels.
Yep.
Our fan-run Facebook channels that might give you some resources to actually change what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say I'm looking at a lot of the live chat, and there are people from the UK, or presumably think they know the UK, who are saying that's not true. I'm not being denied healthcare. I'm being denied housing.
Okay.
And so basically, I'm being told that because I sort of said I don't believe in God, and my social worker was a fundamentalist Christian, that it was considered antisocial behaviour. On that basis, they can refuse you housing. So, all these people who are saying that we have free speech, I would suggest not the NHS, not our nationalised health service, which I used to work for and I think is wonderful and I agree with. I'm not being denied healthcare. I'm being denied housing, and it's being made difficult by a council that is basically very pro political correctness.
Right.
And there is a lot of corruption here. I've seen that in the chat. That's actually on record. Mm-hmm. If the people in the chat want to query what I'm saying, they should go to the law and they should look up protected characteristics in UK law. And I'm actually a jurisprudence counsellor, theory of law. And it is a prohibited speech to say anything that can that can be said to be against religion here. And also the parameters for what's considered hate speech here is namely this: anything that can be perceived to upset a person or anybody observing that person or any other person who perceives that to be hate speech, and then it can be characterized as hate speech. In other words, it's totally subjected. Anyone who perceives it to be hate speech, anyone who observes it, and anyone, a third party who thinks it's hate speech, It
Right.
can be hate speech.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the folks in chat need to realize is that you're not having a problem. It doesn't sound like to me you're having a problem with the system necessarily. You're having a problem with individuals within the system who are possibly abusing their power. Because it shouldn't be you declaring yourself as an atheist, declaring your lack of belief should not be any different than somebody declaring their belief, right? There shouldn't be, and that may be, but what you just read does not sound quite like that either. I don't know.
Well, I at least interpreting it as antisocial behavior. I mean, if that's really the case that's going on here, I don't know. That sounds like a prejudice on somebody's part.
Yeah, it sounds like
right?
somebody's overstepping a little bit to me. But again, Dan and I aren't lawyers in the United States, which means we're also not lawyers in England.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
I hope if anything.
Just to say,
Yeah, I hope if anything, Elizabeth, we can at least give you some respite in your, I don't know, some solace in saying that we respect your belief or lack thereof, right? And we're there with you. We don't think anybody should trample on that or deny you housing or healthcare, but housing or any other kinds of services that you're entitled to by your individual state because of your expressed religious belief. I mean, it's wrong. I would say that for any religious belief, and I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that. Unfortunately, in the United States, there are biases that still affect people, even if they're not legal. Weird. Like religion is supposed to be a protected class when you hire for folks, for example.
Right.
But that's hard. That's so hard to enforce in practice. Like, how do you prove that somebody didn't hire you because you had a religious belief or didn't have a religious belief?
Right.
Like, that's really hard to do. So people kind of do with that anyway. And even in Texas and in other states, it's technically if you express like an atheist belief, I think like you can't like run for governor and stuff. Like there's some obscure laws that have like never actually been enforced
and
because
are unenforceable.
Wouldn't be unenforceable anyway. But it's the fact that it's still there is just like not
ridiculous.
great. So atheists I are by and large obviously are marginalized in a lot of places of the world to varying degrees, obviously, but it sucks that you're going through that, Elizabeth. I wish I could give you more than that, but I don't know that I can. I don't know if Jim can.
I don't have anything other than I'm hoping that the chat realizes that, when you're dealing with bureaucracies, the bureaucracy of the law may not be on their side, but if you that doesn't mean individuals can't suck. It doesn't mean individuals can't react their own way to what they're told. So. Hopefully they can give you some resource. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to back up what I'm saying, is there an email address? Because I'm very willing to send you a copy of my correspondence. I don't want you to speak for me, but just to say I'm telling the truth. And this is actually going on.
I absolutely believe you. I don't need the evidence.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know what the specific laws are.
I'm going to take anybody that calls into the show on face value, whether that's like a smart idea to do or not. I just want to assume people are being honest. But look, like you don't have to look for us for validation, right? We're hearing you out and we're giving you our sympathies and condolences. But if you do have any correspondence you want to send to us, you can do that. It's tv@atheist-community.org. And that's for anybody that wants to send us stuff. But Elizabeth, we're going to go ahead and let you go right now for this call because we do have some audience members that we get to talk to now.
Audience members,
So thanks so much for calling, though. And again, so sorry about your circumstances. And anybody who's going through something similar, again, like discrimination on any accord like that is just really hard to demonstrate, right? Like in a court of law, it's just really hard, especially in the U.S.
And it's also, just because, we saw that with the gal out on the East Coast who decided not to give somebody their marriage license because they are gay. That was one individual. That was not policy, and she was, going against policy. And, there were recourses for that, for those individuals who have the money and the time to hire a lawyer and do the lawsuit and all the rest of it. Not everybody has the money or the time for that. But one of the things we have to remember, that's, sometimes it's hard to remember that you may be dealing with an individual who is on a power trip, who wants to put their beliefs over the law. And that may very well be happening here. We just don't know. We don't know enough about the law. What she read sounded like they were, still sounds to me like they're overstepping. But hopefully there's some recourse there. That's one of the things we have to remember about dealing with bureaucracies.
Yep, it's true. But hey, I got a few more announcements I need to tell you guys about. One is if you shop on Amazon. If you do that, you can actually support the ACA at no cost to you. That's right, because if you visit tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA, and you can designate the Atheist Community of Austin as your selected charity, and Amazon will donate a portion of their profit directly to the ACA. So if you don't feel like giving us like anything, but you still shop on Amazon, like you can still give us something. There are ways, okay? We have our ways that you can help us out. Another way you can help us out and help yourself out is if you check out the Talk Heathen merch store. If you visit tiny.cc/merch ACA, you can get some of your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs, and check out our brand new items like our beanies and cell phone cases and tote bags. We also are featuring a special limited edition item each month. So you should check that out in the store and check out all the other stores. You can see we got the shirt going on right now. We have a couple different shirt ideas. I hope we'll see all of them go through in the store, but we'll see as time goes on. One other thing I want to let you guys know about is we have a channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA. That's right. We don't just have Talk Heathen. We got a bunch of other shows that happen here, and they're all in audio podcast form. In fact, a significant portion of you just listen to the audio version of this show, and if you do, you can visit tiny.cc/AEN podcast to check that out for all of the content. We got quite a bit here at the ACA. And one last thing, you can become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook and you are into that, definitely check it out. It's tiny.cc/FBTHG. Sometimes the hosts comment on there as well, but it's a place run by fans, for fans. So check that out if you're into having conversations with other fans. And actually, I thought we had another audience member. We are going to go to another caller here. So you ready to do that, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think we should talk to Nate.
Okay.
Let's talk to Nate, who's calling in from California. And we're getting you on live here. Nate, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Great. How are you guys?
Doing good. Back in the studio. Excellent, it feels good. The lights are very hot on my face, just like old times. It's great. Really awesome.
Yeah. Nice to know that you have a live audience for the first time in a couple of years.
Yep.
You said
about 2 years.
A little over 2 years.
About 2 years, which is crazy. But here we are. So what's going on, Nate?
Great. Hey, quick. I was going to talk. I think I had broached this topic with Jim once. Jim, and I think it was probably Forrest with him on one of the other shows.
Okay.
And I kind of the answer that Jim provided in Forrest very eloquently back then was excellent. But when I thought about it, I thought I should come back.
Okay.
Because I thought I was not entirely satisfied. And the idea is that, if you guys, or anyone, if you guys know anybody, if one is an atheist about a theist God, right? That kind of makes sense, right? In some sense, it's a no-brainer because a theist God is, in theory, is one that intervenes, which means that there's a chance of some evidence to be made available to you, in which case you have no choice but to believe in a theist God. So long as there is no evidence, there is no reason to believe in one. Simple, right? That being said, if you move up to a deist God, right, then you cannot be an atheist whatsoever. You just cannot, because in theory, the deist God is one that flips the domino over, the first one over in some sense, and then backs off. So there is absolutely no chance of that God. That God doesn't intervene by definition in your day-to-day life, which means there isn't a chance at all of there ever being evidence of a deist God being there, right? That being said, if one asks you to bet on whether there is or isn't a deist God, right? I think you have no choice but to say, I'm exactly in the middle, right? I'm exactly 50-50. I'm not on either side of the scale. I cannot be, technically, because there's no chance of getting evidence for one.
No, well, so first of all, just because there are two options, right? Either there is a deist God or there is no deist God. Doesn't mean that the odds are 50-50. Right? We can't calculate the odds because we don't know what they are. We don't know what the odds of a universe, how many universes can exist with a God and how many universes can exist without a God. So it's not exactly 50-50. But also on any question that is binary like that, a God exists or a God doesn't exist. Let's just back it up real quick. And I believe up over Dan's left shoulder, there is a jar of gumballs.
Jar of gumballs.
So that jar of gumballs either has a even number of gumballs or an odd number of gumballs, right? And so how many positions can you take on the content of the number of gumballs being even or odd on that question? How many positions can you take?
I don't know. So long as I don't count it, the answer is going to be I don't know.
Okay, well, I may not have made my question clear.
Isn't that fair?
So you can have a position of...
Okay, then restate your question if I got it wrong. Yeah. Sorry.
So one position you can take is you can accept as true that there are an odd number of gumballs. That's position one. Position two is you accept as true an even number of gumballs. Position three is I don't know. And position four is I don't care. Now, I don't care is purely me. So we'll just stick with the three that philosophers normally deal with. The correct position, until proven otherwise, is I don't know, right?
Exactly. That's
okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the proposition of there is a deist God. Is if you don't have the evidence, then the correct answer is I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Until you have evidence one way or the other.
Logical fallacy.
Pardon?
Yeah. No, you're right, Jim, but I think there's a very slight logical fallacy in the way you're explaining it. This analogy of gumballs, right? Gumballs, although they are over objectively Dan's shoulder where no one can see it, at this point, you have a chance of counting it. But in the case of the deist God,
well, right,
definition,
and that's what I just said,
God
right?
is never, ever going to interfere in your life, right? Never, ever, if he's there.
Right, but the time to accept something is
measuring.
Right, but the time to accept something as true is when you have evidence. Because what's the difference between a God that never ever does anything for anybody and a God that doesn't exist? What's the difference?
Let's say it one more time, Jim. Sorry.
What's the difference between a God that never ever interferes, never ever does anything for anyone, and a God that doesn't exist?
None.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to believe that God exists until such time as I have evidence to do so. And if that God is not willing to provide evidence, that is not my problem.
No, I know it's not our problem. I'm talking about the logical thing here. Right? A deist God will not interfere in worldly affairs whatsoever. That's how a deist God is.
Right. And you're saying that I should accept that as true without evidence.
No, what I'm saying is you cannot accept it or not. You're right in the middle. You're saying, I just don't know. It's so pure, don't know. It's the purest form of I don't know.
Right.
Right in the middle. That's what I'm saying.
I think you guys are both agreeing on the same thing here.
The only thing you do is say, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think Jim's clarification was saying I don't know is not the same thing as saying it's 50-50, right? I think that was a big point of clarification that you made there.
It is not 50-50. You need to prove what the odds are, which means you need to know how many trials there are, and then how many options there are per trial. Sure. And we just don't know that.
Sure. And there's also the idea of describing exactly what it even means for a God to exist, what that looks like, what is the God, what are its features. I mean, like, even people who say that they're, I mean, you know, the deists who try to call in and talk to us, who are Christians, but want to try to make the deist argument, and I get that. Like, even then, you still don't really know what the deist God is. Like, I get that they're trying to close down the parameters a little bit and try to see what it is, but I still don't know. It seems like every single deist that calls in seems to believe in something a little bit different, right? And that's because I don't think there's a clear definition even on what we're talking about when we're saying there is a God, let alone one that exists but also doesn't at the same time because they're not here or they can't be observed or, you know, whatever, right? So anyway, I think we're basically on the same page there. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a very slight nuance in how I thought of it and how Jim and yourself are thinking of it. But in general, the larger road leads to something. I think it does make sense what you guys are saying. And, this thing has been bugging me. I mean, what I was thinking, am I thinking right or not, right? So, and I bounced this off a couple of friends. And then they all were, no one actually can come out with a satisfactory answer. And neither did you guys, to be honest, because I don't have the capacity of being able to reason as hard as you folks. But, I'm still thinking about these God situation. But in no way does it mean that I am a theist or a believer or anything like that. It's just a logical tussle that I'm kind of dealing with.
Right. Well, remember, belief is a subset of knowledge, and there's such a thing as justified true belief. And you have a justified true belief or knowledge when you have evidence for what you believe. And so if you don't have the evidence, you should not believe it to be true until such time as it's been demonstrated to be true.
Yeah, I also think, when I was a Christian, and I think this is true for a lot of people who were Christians or maybe still are Christians or converts, you kind of go from a theist to a deist position at some point in that process. I think that's pretty common because you're almost making concessions for this idea of God. It's like, well, maybe we can't observe miracles. Maybe we can't observe like him around us, but maybe he's still out there and we just can't touch or feel or contact or do anything with him. And it's like you almost get into this God that kind of hides away into this untouchable corner so that you can still have that belief, but you put him in a spot where he just can't be verified. And if he just can't be verified, then as Jim is pointing out, there's just no reason to believe it than any other thing that can't be verified, right? We might as well be talking about teapots orbiting Jupiter or something, But anyway, Nate, I do appreciate your call. Thanks so much for giving us that conversation. And I hope we gave you something to think about here. And next time you see a jar of gumballs, don't count it. Just give a guess.
Right.
And that's 50-50. Whether it's odd or even. I don't know if there's any other options outside of that.
No, that is a 50-50 shot.
What if it's zero, though?
Well, then it would not be a jar of gumballs. It would be an empty jar. A jar of gumballs implies that the...
Are we talking about the ontology of gumball jars?
I think we
still
are.
qualify it as... Anyway, I don't know.
And we've got an audience.
We've got an audience question here, but before we do that, I just want to give a quick... bit of an update for more announcements for you here. If you want to check out the newest episode of our flagship show, the Atheist, the nonprofits. It's so different in here, Jim. The vibe is so different. I got to get used to it again, man. But anyway, the nonprofits is going to be live at 3 p.m. Central Time today, right after the show. So please check that out if you want to see it. And the ACA wants you to know what's going on in our community. And so we have an updated website that you need to check out. It's www.atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization itself and its policies and how you can get involved. Now, did you know, Jim, you don't have to say www anymore.
I've known that for some time.
They fixed that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's a cool new thing. It's brand new, I think. But anyway, we do want to hear from you. So if you want, we want to know what you liked and what you thought was effective, and more importantly, what you thought we could do better. So we do have an email address that you can talk to us at. It's tv@atheist-community.org, and let us know. Sometimes hosts will respond to that. Sometimes we have other things that we're doing. I don't know. Not every email, but most emails. I mean, I look at all the ones that come to me anyway. So if you're interested in that, please give us a look there. And hey, we're gonna go back to our new feature here, our audience questions. So I'm told that we have another audience member who wants to give us a question. Let's switch to that camera real quick and see if we can do it. There we go. We're on stage. Hey, how you doing, audience member?
Good. How are you?
Good. What is your name?
Connor.
Hi, Connor. Where are you from?
Austin area.
Connor, another one from the Austin area. Yeah. Awesome, Connor. What do you got for us?
Well, first I'd want to say odd number of gumballs.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Just so you know, I'm not going to verify that for you. You are on your own. So.
Yeah.
Well, this one it's not really more of a question. It's more of like a thing that's been going on. It is a religion thing.
Okay.
So it was one of the recent Supreme Court cases that came out. It is concerning even as a theist. So, are you all aware of the case that involved that high school football coach?
Yeah. Yeah, the prayer is acceptable in school by representatives of the state. Yes.
Yeah. So.
And there's two actually, right? There's that one, and then there's also the funding of private schools.
Yep.
Oh, the one up in Maine?
Yeah.
It's Maine, wasn't it? I said Maryland earlier, but yeah, it is Maine. For those who aren't aware, basically there was a coach that was doing prayers for a football team, and this case went over it, and they were saying, no, actually, this is fine. That's what they ruled on, which is new. That's a new precedent. I'm pretty sure every time that's ever been done ever, they've always said, no, you can't do that. But now they're saying, yeah, that's totally cool. So kind of in a weird territory there. Right. So, what did you have to say about that, Connor?
Well, it's also a little bit of a background on myself. I am not I'm a theist, but it's more of a minority religion in this country.
Okay.
But it's also like, even when I was a Christian, the idea of attaching to schooling and education specific religious aspects to it has never really sat well, and it's even more of a concern for someone like me now, given how what we assume is the majority religion, depending on how you look at it. And yeah, it starts at something this small right now, but I guess the question is always how far does it go?
Yep.
Especially, it's not just a minority religion in this country for me, but a minority religion around the world. And let's just say for the ones who are in those other countries, it is already at the lot worse level over there. And that's hearing their stories is also adds concern.
Yeah. Voting is important. Vote, get out there and vote, because that's how we got a Supreme Court that is putting religion over precedent on a number of things, and will continue to do so until we get a majority back, and get some constitutional scholars back in there who are willing to stand up to the Christian nationalists in this country.
I feel like I don't have to explain this. I feel like anybody who's watching this show intuitively understands this, but in case you don't understand like why this is a big deal, like, oh, it's just a prayer at a football game, like who cares, right? Like, it's about the precedent of these cases that matters, right? Well, it could start as something small. It could start as a prayer on a football team, which is already uncomfortable for those who don't believe in the same religion. And then what happens when schools mandate specific clothing because the religion calls for it? What happens when a school mandates specific curriculum because the religion calls for it? You know, there's a reason why we have these separations of these institutions that we sometimes take for granted, but it is important that we have them.
And public school teachers are an arm of the government, whether they want to be or not, they are. Yeah. They represent the government. And the real problem is that it's very difficult to prove that somebody was taken off of first string football and put on second string because of their beliefs, and not because maybe their skill level fell off or other people's skill levels came up. That people will be ostracized for their beliefs. And the only way to really prevent that is to just not have teachers do any of that, right? Because it's coming from a position of authority, especially as teenagers are teenagers. We probably all remember being teenagers at one point. And walking away from that is not always something you're comfortable doing, especially if you want to play football and you want to be part of the team. And then all of a sudden now you're not a team player. You are being ostracized. And the teacher doesn't have to do that. The team could do that, right? You're not a team player because you didn't pray with us. And those are the problems that it raises. And it's not just for Christians. It is for any minority faith. It is for everybody. And this is why we try and keep the wall separated between, religion and government, because when you're in a position of authority, it's almost impossible to get away from that and to say, I'm not doing this as my position of authority. I'm not doing this as a government. Teachers can't do that. They are still a part of a government, whether they want to be. Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So would y'all mind if I shared it's along those same lines, but the story is it's in a more extreme version of what we've...
Something that happened personally to you?
Well, not personally, but it's a story I heard an elderly gentleman tell me about when he was in high school in Iran.
Okay.
So the minority religion that we're both a part of is the Baha'i faith, and it's outlawed over there. And, well, when he was growing up, when he told me about how it was almost like once a day they would take him out of class, and this would be staff, faculty, and they would just start beating him with, I guess, whatever random object they had on them at the time.
Yeah, and that's something that definitely couldn't happen here, since corporal punishment's pretty much outlawed at the moment. Although the Bible does have something about spare the rod, spoil the child, or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not what we want to do. We want to keep that wall separated between religion and government as much as humanly possible.
Yep. And that's why it's important that we talk about this and vote when we can, although with our current system, at least on a Supreme Court level, we really can't do much as individual citizens.
At the moment, yeah.
Which is pretty terrifying. But Connor, thanks so much
for thanks, Connor.
Sharing your story with us and, talking about, despite not being an atheist, you still understand. And hopefully Christians understand. I feel like when I was a Christian, I understood this, right? Yeah. Like, this wasn't a big deal for me. Like, yeah, I don't want people of any faith telling me what to do or how I should be doing things while I'm at school, because that's just not cool. And I also went to a school with like a lot of other Muslim kids and went to school with like kids of other faiths. So that just seemed very intuitive to me. But I can see if you grow up in a bubble of like just Christians, it's just like, yeah, this is great. Why wouldn't we want to give this to everybody, right? Yeah. But not so great. Anyway, thanks again, Connor, for doing that with us. And I am going to right now. I'm going to go ahead and take another call. Yeah, I think we should do that. Looking at the time here, just making sure that we are on the right track. I think we need to talk to. Tell me if I'm pronouncing your name right. It's Alok, I think, is what we have written down here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Alok from California. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. So, did I get your name right?
It's Alok.
Alok. Okay. Thank you, Alok. Well, thank you. You are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on, Alok?
Yeah, so I've been an atheist for like 15 years, thanks to your show. I was science and engineering background, and basically that's what made me an atheist. So I can almost destroy most of the theist arguments like fine-tuning and evolution and all that. But the origin of the universe always confounds me, because there's also a thing like a logical possibility, right? Like if the road is wet, it could either be, or if your driveway is wet, it could either be the rain or someone sprinkled water there or the groundwater came out, stuff like that. But when it comes to the origin of the universe, there are not many possibilities left, right? Because if it's a multiverse, it gets into the infinite regression thing. How could something be eternal? And maybe the Big Bang was cyclical and we're in a cyclical universe, stuff like that. At some point, you have to realize, if you really appreciate the truth and all, that something should have created it. I'm not calling it God, obviously. It could be anything, but it cannot be magic, right? Something, and science, physics doesn't say anymore that something from nothing. I get that. But something should have and would have caused the initial creation. And I don't know how many logical possibilities are left. And
I mean, I understand intuitively how that can make a certain amount of sense, right? Well, you have this stuff. We don't know where it's from. There must have been something that have given us the stuff, right? Like that's kind of a boiled down version of that. But I think that it kind of just raises the question is, okay, well, who created that creator? And what created the things that made that creator? It's a never-ending, spiral of questions you can ask yourself. And really, if we say, well, there was a God who created everything, it doesn't actually answer as much as we might think, right? Because we don't know about the constituent parts of that God. We don't know how he works. We don't know anything besides, they were there at the point of origin, which is pretty much exactly what we know about the current Big Bang. You know what I mean? Like there was an origin point at some point. Okay. Or maybe not even that. Maybe it's a bit more complicated. But I think that kind of reasoning kind of digs into us more emotionally than it does rationally. In a sense, like we want there to be something ultimate and want there to be something more than that. But really, I don't think there's any particular reason why we should think it's a supernatural force or a force with any kind of intention or anything, unless it's been demonstrated otherwise, which I don't think it has. If anything, the universe has demonstrated itself to be pretty cold and pretty uncaring. Yeah. I don't know if there's any reason to believe why there's a force that has intention or has something.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is, let's say it's not God. We are being completely naturalistic. that something, whatever it is, had to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where does it end? Where does it end? And we can keep saying we don't know, and that's a very, very humble and honest way of answering it. But I'm thinking that do we just not know, or will we never know? That's the
question.
That's a really good question. We don't even know that, right?
Here's the thing, Jim and I, we're not qualified to answer that question, honestly. But for real, it's like, there's so many new things that we've learned about physics and cosmology that in just the past decade that have completely changed the way that we think about the origins of the universe. What is going to change in the next decade and the decade after that? I'm certainly not qualified enough to make any predictions on that. And it might be a case where we may never really know, whether that's because we won't know because we might be brains in a jar, or if it's something that our physical limitations can't actually tell us anything more about the origins of the universe. I mean, that may be a possibility as well. But either case, we know more today than at any other point in human history, and we're still not that much closer to the idea of a God, really. In fact, I think there's just the fact that we know about some aspects of cosmology have really completely upturned 99% of what religions have said have happened.
Right.
So I don't know. We're getting somewhere, right?
Yeah. And Krauss has actually got a really good book called Something from Nothing.
Yeah.
And where he proposes a perfectly valid hypothesis of how something could come from nothing.
Yeah.
And he goes into great gory detail. And now there's just we need to do a lot more experimentation. We need to know a lot more about quantum mechanics than we do. But he actually has a plausible something from nothing. So even the something from nothing crowd is we have a good hypothesis that is better than theirs, that doesn't raise more questions. So when you say God did it, the immediate question you raise is, well, who created God?
Yeah.
That is absolutely valid. And if God can be infinite and God can exist for eternity, then why can't the universe?
Yep.
You have the same questions, right? Moving to God doesn't change any of those questions.
Yep.
But I think getting comfortable with I don't know and just saying, hey, we've got a lot of hypotheses out there and science is working on finding the answer. And the time to believe something is when you have enough evidence to warrant the belief. And there is no easier way than to say, get comfortable with I don't know. And if they're going to keep pressing you on it and you want to answer the questions, keep studying science.
Yep.
But you don't have to. You can just say, look, scientists don't know. It's not something I'm interested in. The origin of the universe does not affect my daily life, and I don't really care.
Yeah, and the lack of knowledge is not a defeater, on the atheist position or naturalist position, right? It's not you don't know, you can't answer this. We have an answer. It's called God, because God is not a sufficient answer either. Again, it doesn't actually explain anything more. It just adds another layer to the problem that we haven't solved yet, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. I guess that's our take on this. What do you think, Alok?
Yeah, I think. I couldn't care less about convincing a theist. Let's say I'm arguing with a scientist, and I would say that I'm a student of science and logic as well. How many logical possibilities can you think?
Yeah.
And the bar with the logical possibility is so low. The only thing which are not possible are like a square circle and all that. So how many logical possibilities can you think? And that's where I can't figure it out. And so I agree, we don't know. I'm just worried that we'll be able to know. And I was just trying to challenge you guys to look at the logical possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing, too. It may not even be a logical possibility in that how we understand logic, right? Like, there's already so many people that have pointed out, like, hey, quantum mechanics completely, doesn't care about what our traditional means of observing the universe have to say about it. So, like, it may not be something that we can logically conclude. That's another possibility. And if that's the case, then it's completely outside of our observation. It's completely unknowable. But it doesn't mean theists have the upper hand. It really doesn't. And again, theists, in particular, Christianity, has made very specific predictions and ideas about how the universe works and its origins. There are some will say, well, these are just metaphors. They're not actually talking about it. But, I beg to differ, actually, on, excluding just the Genesis story. There's tons of passages you could look at, like when the sun stops in the sky, or when water turns into wine, all these kinds of things that don't actually line up with a universe that we observe, that still don't lend to the interests of Christianity. And again, I'm picking on Christianity because it's what we talk about. But that's true for pretty much most religions that have anything to say about how the universe operates.
Right.
So Anyway, anything else you want to add on that before we let you go here, Alok?
No, I think we're on the same page. I just get troubled by it because I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
But
And it is troubling because we don't have an answer, but I would continue. I'd say there's lots of really, really good stuff on YouTube about before the Big Bang and on black holes and all kinds of interesting stuff on that topic. And it's all still hypothetical at the moment. So,
and again, I would stress we know more now than we used to.
Yeah.
That you could at least take solace in that. Again, more so than any other point in human history, you're going to have some information on that, which I think is pretty cool. But anyway, thanks, Alok, for calling in and giving us your perspective and stuff. I'm glad that we found some points of agreement. And hey, we have a quick promo that we need to show you guys talking about some of the other shows that happen here at the Atheist Community of Austin. So check this out.
Maybe I'll use that phrase a lot, but it's important to stress you're normal. Whatever it is, no matter how it hangs or dangles or smells or whatever else, it's normal, it's beautiful.
He goes to heaven and he gets to live forever, whereas Anne Frank, who never came to understand Christ as her Lord and personal Savior, burns forever in a fire. Is that perfect justice? Because if it is, perfect justice can go itself.
Feel free to give me some praise hands, ladies. For whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for sheep or wine, or for strong drink, thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God. So there you have it, folks.
Amen.
The Bible says grab some beers.
Atheists go to outer darkness. It's a place worse than hell.
Frank, why on earth should anybody believe that this is a real place?
Kenneth, you're going to go to Valhalla when you die.
I'd like to go to Cancun or something. You know?
Yeah,
like,
way cooler.
Really, very polite, well-groomed people are gathering in temples as we speak with all of their kids, and they believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet. What happens if you get to heaven and heaven is full of Mormons?
And we're back to the show. And really quickly, I need to give a quick shout out to our top 5 patrons. We always give a shout out to our top 5 patrons here at the Talk Heathen show. So I'm going to give that out right now. Number 1 on our top patrons this week is Eric Tweet. Number 2 is Dingleberry Jackson. Number 3 is Balaam's Donkey. Number 4 is Ayame, right? I think it's Ayame. No one's corrected me on that.
Looks like it.
So I'm going to keep saying it. And number 5 is Dan Conger. An honorable mention goes to Christopher W. Fugata. So a Fugate? It's hard to know. Yes. It's hard to know without a pronunciation guide. But hey, thank you regardless to everybody who donates on that Patreon. Once again, if you go to patreon.com, I believe /TalkHeathenTH. So it's in the description of the show. You should definitely check it out. And thanks again for everybody who donates to our Patreon. You guys rock. And hey, we're going to try to do another audience question here. And again, we want this to make this a regular feature. We're still trying to work out the kinks of it, but so far it's working out pretty good, I'd say.
Well, I'm not entirely sure we can call this gentleman an audience member.
No, he's in the audience room right now.
He's in the audience room.
He's watching us.
Yeah, I don't know. He's got that ACA crew shirt on.
He's got that crew shirt on, which is suspicious, but we'll talk to him anyway. So let's see if we're going to get the audience cameras on there. What's going on, mysterious crew member who I don't know the name of? What is your name?
My name's Colson.
Colson?
Colson? Yeah, that's
me.
Colson.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, Colson, where are you from?
I'm from Georgia, although I live here in Austin now. Awesome. In fact, the ACA was a big part of that, so for doing what you do.
We're just jostling around here. Colson is somebody who's been helping us for a while now in the crew, so thanks so much, Colson, for doing all that you do. But you got a question for us? I mean, what do you need to know, Colson?
Well, like I said, I grew up in Georgia, and at the time I was, a Southern Baptist, pretty, I was a young Earth creationist, the whole nine. And I've found, as I've moved around, that Austin in particular has been very welcoming to atheists. No small part thanks to you guys, I'm sure. So I was wondering if you'd ever had in your life, if you've ever had a particularly uncomfortable situation with a theist out in public, or if not, maybe you could speak to some of the areas that you've been in the U.S. that are a little bit more friendly to atheists. I know, for example, that my hometown, I would not want to be sharing that I was an atheist in my hometown. It would be very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I got stories. You got stories, Jim?
I don't really.
Okay. Well,
so go ahead.
Here's the thing. I'm not just an atheist. I'm like an atheist that's like on the internet, right? So like that has complicated a lot of relationships, both like intimate or otherwise, right? It's just because it just adds an extra dimension to it. Like I am the guy with the fedora and like the neck beard on the computer talking about atheism, right? Like I'm fulfilling the stereotype. But like, you know, like obviously this is important to me and I believe in what we're doing here. So like I've decided that this is what I wanted to do. And of course, there's people in my life who knew me as a Christian. And so some of those people found out that I wasn't a Christian anymore because they saw me on a show that gets like thousands of views. So it's like that was kind of a shock for some of them. I remember one girl that I used to work at a church camp. I was actually a manager at a church camp, and she was somebody that I picked to like hire and stuff. And she called me up saying, "Dan, what are you doing? You know you're gonna go to hell." Like she literally said, like, "Aren't you worried about like the salvation of your soul?" And that was like pretty hard to deal with because it's like, wow, this person that I knew and was great friends with is now like giving me this proposition about my eternal damnation, I guess, and whether or not I choose to accept it. Of course, I gave her the answer that, you know, I really don't believe that's what's going to happen to me. And like the threat of violence is not going to coerce me into belief. You know, like that, just because you think it's going to happen to me doesn't mean that I'm going to change my mind on. Of course, that's really sad. But like even outside of people who know me for doing this, I remember there was one guy I talked to, I was friends with for a while. And I told him one day I was an atheist. I can't remember the context of the conversation. He's like, "Oh, Dan, I just thought you were a Christian because you're so nice." And it's just like, I can't be a nice person and not be a Christian like that. That one has always stuck out to me in my mind. So yeah, I got a lot of stories like that. What about you, Jim?
No, I mean, every once in a while someone will recognize me, but it's never an awkward situation. I think the most awkward it's been a few weeks ago, I went to a funeral for my uncle. That side of the family is still very religious. Still, they've always been. And so, of course, it was a full Catholic funeral. And my cousin, he knows that I'm out, or that I'm an atheist, because he is on my Facebook page. And he said, "Thanks for coming. I'm surprised you haven't been struck by lightning yet." And I laughed. And I could feel in my head, guns training, and okay, we're getting ready. And it's like, no, this is neither the time nor the place for any type of conversation along those lines. Despite my cousin jokingly and in fun making that comment that there was not. I mean, that's the most awkward it's been for me. So I haven't had a whole heck of a lot. But honestly, the most activism that I do at the moment is the shows. So I haven't been on as long as Dan, and you know, Dan's got his own show that his name is attached to, and I've got kind of attached to Atheist Experience. So just haven't had the same type of awkward conversations.
I will say this, in Austin, I don't know if it's that people are accepting. It's more so people just don't give a shit. Yeah, they just don't care, really. And that's a good thing. Like I have coworkers who are Christian and they know that I do this show and stuff, and they don't even ask me questions about it. They just don't care. And you know what? I almost prefer that in a way. It's like, yeah, maybe we should just move on from all this stuff. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's going to be some sort of ideological differences you're going to find at one point or another, but like as far as my working space is concerned, that doesn't actually matter. Obviously it's a little harder when you have friends and family who are closer to you and maybe want to invite you to particular gatherings that are religious in nature, or maybe they vote a certain way because of their religion, and that's where you might find some conflict. But here in Austin, man, this is a city of weirdos, dude. We're not the weirdest people here. I'll tell you that. Yeah, there's people really who we're not even in like the top 10. Like there's a lot of people who I'd be way more concerned about.
Yeah. Well, too. I mean, traveling around, and like I live with my girlfriend in East Texas, and right now, and when you go out there, you don't see any churches with rainbow flags. You see a lot of exactly what you would expect. Living in East Saudi Arabia. But here in Austin, I think I'm more surprised when I see a church that doesn't have a rainbow symbol, or something else equally welcoming to everybody here, than out there. And so, Austin is a big blue dot and a big gerrymandered red state, and I do mean gerrymandered.
Yeah, we are a blue oasis in a sea of red.
Yeah,
you know, and that's kind of how it is. And that's cool. Also, how about you, Colson? You like living in Austin?
Oh yeah, it's great. You know, I've been here over a year now, and yeah, I mean, the only awkward thing that ever happened was with my grandma. So I'll let her story be private. It's my grandma, but
sure.
But it was just that. Well, never mind.
That's fine.
We have another family member that is an atheist and is out about it. But at the time I was having this conversation with my Nana, she didn't know that I was an atheist, and I don't think she still does, but that's fine. Yeah. And she said, "Oh, so and so is an atheist, and what do you think about that?" And I was just kind of like, "Oh, that's interesting." She said, "Well, that's a fine way to live, but that's no way to die." And I just said, "Oh,
yeah. I remember when my grandmother passed away last year, I remember the pastor saying the most important thing about her life, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but one of the most important things was that she was a Christian, before she died. And it was just like, that was not the most important thing to me. I'll tell you that much right now. Like, maybe that's the important thing to the big man upstairs, if he's out there, but that is not what's important to me. What's important to me was that she was a good person, and that she treated other people with kindness and respect, and anybody can do that. You don't have to have a particular religious faith to adhere to, principles of human decency. But that's why we're here, right? We're trying to convince other people that that's true, and we're doing it one day at a time. But anyway, Colson, thanks so much for giving us your question there, and thanks for all the hard work you do behind the scenes. You are an integral part of this.
Have we done the crew cam yet?
We haven't, but we're not quite at the end of the show.
Okay.
But we'll get there. Okay. We'll get there, Jim. But, we still got a little bit of time here, so let's keep the ball rolling. What are you saying? Want to talk to another caller?
Yeah.
Okay. We have Ryan, who's calling in from Utah. Ryan, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Hi. So I was watching debates on YouTube between Cosmic Skeptic and Frank Turek. I don't know if you're familiar with those individuals.
Yes, I am.
Well, I think the debate was on, do morals and reason exist?
Yeah.
And I actually lean towards being atheist. I mean, I consider myself an agnostic. And I was listening to this debate, agreeing with Cosmic Skeptic for the majority, but then Frank Turek, he was actually making the argument that how can we even trust? So if like absolute reason doesn't exist, or if God is not the grounding of all truth, then how can we even trust anything? Or how can we even trust our own reason or logic? How can we say something's right or wrong logically if God isn't the source of that? You know?
Right. And is that something that kind of gave you pause? Were you not sure how to answer that?
It did.
Okay. How did people? Let me ask you this: before, because I'm assuming you agree with me, Ryan, in the proposition that there was a point in time when Christianity didn't exist, right? And there's a point in time when Judaism didn't exist, right? Do you agree with that or not? Okay. So how did the people before Judaism existed find truth? What did they do?
I think they just observe things.
Right.
I don't know. They see things.
Right.
I think that's it. I think if you believe in a worldview where humanity started by a literal creation from God, then maybe you could run that argument. But if you understand humanity exists from a modern anthropological perspective, that human beings as they currently exist have at least existed for 100,000 years, 200,000 years or more, then you come to find that we just came to be and we figured out how to reason just through purely evolutionary methods. Right, and it may not be objective in the sense where a Christian wants to posit that you can kind of centralize these beliefs and this is absolutely correct. But you know what? I'll tell you this: I saw Frank Turek one time. I was in Waco, Texas, and he was speaking at Baylor University, and I actually asked him a question because Frank Turek believes in an objective morality, and I interpret that as a morality that doesn't change. I asked him about the passage. I think it's in Numbers, where a guy stones another guy to death for not picking up sticks on a Sunday. I asked him if that was an example of objective morality in action, and he kind of gave this ho-hum answer of like, well, that was the culture of the time. It may have been interpreted as, it was like, if you're interpreting that through the culture of the time, then it's not objective. Like it's either universal to all peoples that you can say that was good or bad, right? So I'm not convinced that Christians have this right either, right? I'm not convinced that they have this monopoly on objective morality. It certainly hasn't been demonstrated to me. So whether or not you fall on the position that objective morality exists or not, Christians certainly don't have it. I don't think they've ever given an argument that demonstrates to that point.
But as with regards to the concept of true, it also depends on your definition of true.
Yeah.
And if you use the most common definition, which is that which conforms to reality, then you have something to ground it on. Does what I believe, does the evidence conform to reality? And yeah, sometimes we can't trust our senses all the time. Our eyes will deceive us. We will see things that aren't there just because that's the way our eyes work. And sometimes that's because that's the way our brains work too, right? Not everybody's brain is completely connected to reality. But we do the best we can with what we have. With the senses. And that's how we ground what is true, is what we can demonstrate to be close to reality. I can demonstrate that 1 + 1 = 2 every single time, and it doesn't matter what language or what symbology I use. If I take this can and this can and I put them together, I have 2 cans, right? That reality doesn't change.
But that's my other question. So, I mean, I understand, our senses have evolved and gotten better over all these thousands of years. But something like math seems like independent of me, or and
math is the map.
Like what came first, like math or?
Oh man,
well, math is the map, not the territory.
Let me tell you, Ryan. We've been talking a lot about how we're not experts. I will tell you this: the question about whether mathematics exists independent of humans is like a super deep philosophical question that people have tried to answer, and I don't know if there's a good reason.
It's not that deep. It's simply math is the map, not the territory. Right. Math describes things. It can describe parabolas, and it can describe the universe and the earliest seconds of it. It can do all kinds of things in terms of description, but that's all it is. It's a map, not the place. And scientists run into this all the time, right? And one of the best examples of that is with the Higgs boson, right? Mathematically, they proved the sucker existed, but they still spent billions of dollars to rapidly accelerate particles and smash them together. Now, did they do that partially because it's fun to smash things together? Probably. But also so that they could prove a mathematical concept to be true, because sometimes the map is wrong.
Here's the thing about folks like, I won't call out Frank Turk specifically. I'm just saying Christian apologists in general will do this kind of scare reasoning, this kind of fear-mongering of, well, you don't have absolute knowledge of these things. You don't have an absolute basis for your judgments. So how can you be sure about anything, right? And this is a common thing you see, and it's to kind of invoke this sense of uneasiness. It's to invoke this sense of, oh, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But like philosophers and scientists and just human beings have been wrestling with these questions for longer than we can count, right? Like, it's just been constantly happening, and nobody has it all figured out. Nobody's going to be able to sit here and tell me, well, actually, this is the best reason possible. Like Jim was saying, we have approximations, and we have tools that we can use to observe the things around us. But again, I go back to this idea. Don't let Frank Turk be the guy to tell you that, hey, I got it figured out in this morality department. You know what I mean? You got to listen to me. I've heard Frank Turk's morality. I'm not impressed. You know what I mean? I don't think it's objective in the slightest, right?
Yeah, I know he's a big homophobe. I've heard him like years ago, and then I was really surprised when he said this argument, which made me pause for a second.
And it's like when you grew up, and I don't know your backstory, Ryan, but for somebody like me who grew up as a Christian and who was literally told that you could not interpret morality without a Christian lens, like that does give you pause when suddenly other people are trying to say, well, actually, this is good. Like homosexuality is actually fine, and you should be able to tolerate it. And your first question might be, well, what do you base that on? Because your whole basis was the Bible, or whatever your church said, or whatever, and like that can be hard for people to grasp. But when you realize that morality comes from a multitude of sources, sort of this almost like soup-like thing that people say that they have, and sometimes claim is objective, which it almost indubitably turns out not to be. It just becomes more complicated. And does it give you solid answers on everything? No. And that's the honest thing you can be with yourself, right? You don't have to have complete absolute certainty or knowledge on all of your positions or why you think the way you do. But as long as you're able to come up with reasons that you can deem defensible, that you can deem reasonable, and that you believe you can convince others for, that aren't just like, well, I do it because the book says so, or because God says so, or whatever, I think you're going to be on the right path, right? Yeah. But anyway, that's my take on it. Ryan, I hope we were able to answer it for you, and I hope we could give you some peace of mind on that question. But I am told that we have another audience question that we should get to, so let's get to that. Do we have another audience question for us? There it is. Let's get to that audience camera here. There we go. Awesome. We have another audience member. Hi, audience member. What's your name?
Going. Name's Andrew.
Andrew, where are you from, Andrew?
Originally from California. Lived here in Austin since I was about 4.
Heck yeah. We got all the Austin people today. I will say this, folks. We've had a lot of people over the years who will like come from out of the country and like will plan just to come to the studio.
They've planned entire vacations from other countries. Vacations in the United States.
I'm excited to see it again. Obviously, this was a soft opening today, and a lot of people are just now realizing we're back in. I'm excited to see more people come from like, I don't know, Afghanistan or something. Like I want to see people from all around the world. But hey, Austin's pretty good too. So what's your question for us today?
I just had a quick question about when apologists in particular ask about what would an atheistic society look like or whatever. It's as if they've never heard of any of the Scandinavian countries that are almost entirely non-religious. So I just never really understood why is it that they find that so confounding that there could be a society that doesn't have the underpinnings of a religion, but still they're like the happiest countries in the world. Right.
And I think there are two parts to that. One is they don't know about the Scandinavian countries, and they don't know all the good things that are happening there. But two, they look at China and Russia, which are officially atheist countries. Russia probably less now, but China is definitely an atheist country. Or they'll lump in Hitler, of course, and Hitler was a Christian. Let's just leave it at that. He was. And so they look at those and they go, well, that's what happens in an atheist. And no, that's not what happens in an atheist country. Even from a certain point of view, what's happening in the Scandinavian countries isn't because of their atheism, right?
No.
It's because of their outlook on life, because their governments are focused on making on very different priorities than the United States government and state governments are here in the States for the most part. And so that's why they're happier. But are they also atheist? Yeah. Do some of those countries still have an official religion and things like that? Sure, some of them do. But for somebody to come up and say, hey, I'm religious, they're going to look at you like you just, we're walking around without pants.
Yeah. And it is funny because the idea that there's two arguments that are put out here. One is that you need to be founded on Christian principles. The other one is that you just need a religion, which is that's hilarious, right? There's so many religions. Like, what if we had like the Raelians and just like, we're going to make a Raelian state, you know what I mean? Or like, just like, I don't know, whatever Manson believes for. Like, we're going to make that the state religion. Like, that clearly doesn't work, but obviously that's never been done on a large scale. But I imagine if you ask the average Christian, okay, well, you'd be okay with living in an Islamic, like, Islamically run theocracy. Would that be okay with you? And I imagine most of them would say no. But they want to try to pin the successes of the world on some sort of Western Christian tradition and say, look, they have this religious belief and that's why they were able to do things they do. And they don't look at, socioeconomic power differences and world resources and political alliances and all the things that actually complicate why states have the powers that they do and also the way that they treat their citizens. So as Jim pointed out, it's not like the Scandinavian countries are great because they're atheist. It's just because they have policies that are considered humane and more universal. And you don't have to be an atheist state to even do that necessarily, but I guess it helps. I don't know.
Is it a misunderstanding of whether or not atheism would be like an overarching or a fundamental push for the society?
Yeah, I mean there is an idea that atheism is some sort of underlying philosophy, right? That it has some sort of organizing principles by which it governs itself. It doesn't. Atheists is, we've talked about it before, it's like herding cats. Like every atheist has different ideas of what it should mean to do something. There have been states in the past that have had an official atheist, sort of outlook that they've pronounced, and it has given way for totalitarian regimes because the religious institutions in the states don't have as much power, right, and don't make as many decisions. Russia is an example of that, right? The Eastern Orthodox Church is a major political power, still is, but when you say that your official state is atheist, suddenly, I don't know, it doesn't have as much force. So there's political reasons as to why a state is going to call themselves atheist, but it doesn't have anything to do with their outlook, right? It doesn't have anything to do with their underlying philosophical principles of what kind of policies they make. And that's what they're scared of. They're scared of, like, communist Russia.
Right.
Like that's my experience with it.
They're also making a category error, right? Atheism opposes theism. Now, under theism, you have two categories again. One is monotheism and polytheism. And, under monotheism, you could put three religions, really, Islam and Christians and Jews are all monotheistic. There are probably others that I don't know about, and that's fine. And so they make that category error, right? We deny all that. And they look at, and until you get to Christianity, that specific level under the hierarchy I just mentioned, I really don't know anything about your outlook around the world. But once I know you're a Christian, and if I know you're evangelical Christian in particular, not only can I, with a high degree of accuracy, know what you believe, I can also tell you in this country what your religious party is and what your stance on vaccines is.
Yeah.
So, but you can't do that with an atheist.
Right.
There's not an atheist in the audience out there that I could tell what their vaccine status is. I could guess, but I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
I have talked to atheists who believe the moon landings were faked.
Yep.
I have talked to atheists in this building who believed in fairies, who believed in ghosts, who believed in all kinds of weird stuff. So you can't make that category error, and a lot of Christians do.
Yep. It's true. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, man, that's it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for your question. And with that, folks, I got to say this has been a wonderful episode back in the studio. I'm really glad. Thank you, audience, for showing up and watching us. We'll be sure to talk to you guys once the show is over. But thank you guys for watching at home. Once again, I want to remind you guys, we're not going to be doing every single episode live, but we are going to try to at least commit to one. Typically, the last Sunday of the month is what we're going to try to do, and doing it live. And that's not just for Talk Heathen. We're going to do the same thing for Atheist Experience, which is also happening live later today. Truth Wanted is going to try to be live. And of course, I'm the only host of Truth Wanted that's in the Austin area. So whenever I'm on, that's when you might expect me to be in the studio. But this is something that we're really excited to be back doing. So please check out the website if you want to be sure about specific times. Check out our social media pages and stuff. If you want to come down to the library and hang out with us, we don't just do the shows. We like to hang out. We like to talk. We usually have food around here, and it's a pretty cool thing to do. So so thank you again to everybody who's been setting this up, and we've been prepping for this for a couple months now. Really excited that we got to do it. And now it's time for me to kind of start to close out the show. So just to remind you guys how you can support this show, we do have that fundraiser. 100% of the proceeds on there go directly to us as a nonprofit. So definitely check that out. YouTube does not charge for any fees for that. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Oh, it means so much to us if you do, and comment as well. Start a fight in the comments. I don't know, make something controversial. Say pineapple is good on pizza, and I'll back you up on that. And I'll
hot dog is a sandwich.
Yeah, it's hot dogs is a sandwich. Have the conversation out there. Just, I'm encouraging just random internet fights here, and I probably shouldn't be doing that. But, engagement is always helpful for us, right? You can support the show on Patreon. It's tiny.cc/PatreonTH, and we'd love for you to do that. And also, you can become a member by clicking the join button that exists below the video, and you get those cool emojis like you see in the live chat, probably happening right now. You can also become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook pages, tiny.cc/FBTHG, so check that out. And we have a channel that hosts all of the shows in audio format. Check that out as well, tiny.cc/AEN podcast. If you want to continue the discussion in different places, check out our social media. I'm on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan. What's your social
I'm on
media,
Twitter as well under Jim Barrows.
Yeah. So come talk to us there. And right after this show, check out the newest episode of the ACA's flagship show, The Nonprofits. And we have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, spectacular crew that helps make this show happen every single week. There's the crew.
For the crew. Yay!
Yeah.
Crew.
So we got a mix of crew members tonight, in the studio and outside the studio, and that's probably how it's going to be. Yeah. That's probably how it's going to be. And we might even experiment with having shows where no hosts are here, but just people are here to watch as like a live party.
That would be kind of cool.
It would be cool. So we're going to see how that works out. But again, thank you to everybody who helped put this together. I need to give out some love rings. Let's put those love rings out on the screen for me. There we go. Thank you to all of our viewers. Whether or not you believe, if you are an essential worker, we want to thank you. And if you don't believe, this is your community. If you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
And thank you very much, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.